Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to another great tutorial. I'm glad you're here. I am glad to be here. And just wanted to say that it's been really busy on my neck of the woods. I've been traveling out of the country a lot for work. I actually just got back. Last week I was out of the country all week last week. And I also moved closer to the studio, about an hour away from where I was living. So I'm an hour closer to work. It's fantastic, saving on gas, all the great stuff, and making tutorials for you guys because I love you. Anyways, today we're going to be going into more motion graphics for After Effects, and I think this is going to be my last beginner tutorial. After this tutorial, I'm going to start making more advanced tutorials, maybe like some compositing, some VFX with live action footage, the works, all that snazziness, and hope you enjoy it. But anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to be creating today. Oh, video producer, VFX, motion graphics. Oh, Kyle Griffin. Video, oh, I don't remember what it says. Anyways, this is the tutorial for today. We've got this 3D cube, and we've got some, I'll just pause it. We've got a 3D cube, and it's spinning around in 3D space, and it actually is completely 3D. If I press C on the keyboard, I can bring up my camera that I have created, and I can just kind of rotate around and let me drop it down half resolution here. And I can just move it around, and it's actually 3D, and you know, looks pretty nice, if I do say so myself. And the reason it's kind of spazzing out is because of it's not oriented correctly. Well, it's oriented correctly, it's just I'm using a null object to control the camera. But yeah, I don't know if you can see the smiley face there or not, but there's a smiley face there. I thought that'd be a funny joke, but obviously not. And we also have this rising star thing similar to that on the Canadian flag in the background, along with a gradient in the background. And what we've done basically is we have geez, let me just press Control Z a whole bunch till we get to where we were. And what we have is this cube here, there's a smiley face, this cube, and we've created it using multiple compositions. And what that's allowed us to do is make these compositions different size, 6 sides to a cube, and put it all in one composition right here. It's some separate cube composition, and this is also 3D. I can orbit around again, and it's completely 3D. And the great thing about this is that it's all procedural. So if I wanted to change my name, I can go into the side that had my name in it. I can press V and go to my text layer, and I can just change it. Scale that down. And it'll update in the main composition. So now it says change instead of my name. So let's go ahead and get started creating this. What I'm going to do is create a new composition. Call this tutorial. And about 10 seconds will be good. 10 seconds in one frame. There we go. Okay, and now we have this blank composition. I'm going to create another composition and make it 500 by 500. And 10 seconds, one frame is great. And what I want to do is I have this grungy gray texture that I've bought from Video Copilot's Riot Gear. Highly recommend it. Going and purchasing everything off their site because they're fantastic. But if you are low on cash, you can just go to Google and search grungy gray textures or grungy textures, and you'll find something. Or I would highly recommend going outside and just taking a picture of something that looks nice. That would work. So let's import that. So now we've got this grungy texture. We can scale it down to give us a little bit more detail here. And what I also want to do is press Control Y, Command Y on Mac, and just create blue solid. Actually, let's make it red. We'll make a red cube this time. I use blue a lot. Make a reddish solid. That might be a little bit too bright. Let's darken it down just a touch. Same as the composition. Press OK. And what I want to do, remember how I did this? Yep. What I want to do is put the red solid under the grungy gray texture and press F4 if it's not already shown, or you can toggle the switches we're pressing there, and select the grungy gray texture to overlay. So yeah, I gotta darken this down a good bit. So we go to layer, solid settings, and just find something that looks like it might work. This is kind of demented, this red color, jeez. All right, so that's looking pretty good. We can even add a curves adjustment to our top layer to give it a little more contrast, bring out some of those details. And what we can also, now what we want to do is want to create our text. Press Control T to create our text. We'll go up here and click on the text icon there, and we'll just type in something like the, because it's a very easy word to type, and it fits. Oh, it almost fits. We'll scale that down just a touch, and you want to make sure that you want your text to be gray, 100% or 50% gray. So what you can do is you can select your text, click on your color palette here, and down here at the B, just make that 50%. And the reason we want to do that is if we go to our transfer mode and do classic color burn, it'll burn that gray texture into our layer, so it looks like, so that the is shows through and it has the detail. And if we move the around, it'll update. So that looks pretty nice. If you want to center it up perfectly from the OCD, you can click this button here and do title action save and center it up. Now, if we made all of our cube just like this, it wouldn't look perfect. I mean, it wouldn't look like an actual cube. Like if we go back here, you can see that along the edges, it darkens a little bit. And if we didn't have that, let me just change these two so we don't have them. Let's see, but let me show you what that looks like. So if we didn't have these, it would we would lose that edge. So we definitely need this fringe around it. So what we can do is we can press Control Command Y and make another gray solid. Make it all the way gray. 50%. All right, and press OK. And now what we want to do is want to double click on the rectangular mask tool. If you don't see that, if something else is right here, hold down and it'll give you different options. So double click on the rectangular mask tool, and what that's done is create a perfect mask around the edge of the solid. So it's brought it up right here. We want to duplicate that mask and set the second one to subtract. And it's made it disappear because it's put two masks on top of each other, that one's adding the material back in and one's taking it away. So it's negating itself. So let's press MM on the keyboard, and we want to feather the second mask. So if you look, it's bringing back that gray into here so that we can see it. And just like the word that we used, we want to set that to classic color burn as well. So now we have this really nice fringe around the edge. So that's great. Now let's go back to our composition, and we want to change the name of this. Instead of comp 1, let's keep it neat, and we'll use this side _1 just to make it all work. So what we want to do is want to go composition, new composition, side _2, and press OK. And we'll just go over here. We'll grab the top layer and the bottom one, copy them by pressing Control C or Edit Copy. Go to side 2 and paste it in. Now, whenever you copy and paste multiple layers, After Effects will put the layers in here the way that you ordered them when you copy them. So, for instance, if I get rid of that and I go back here and I press get the bottom one and the top one and copy it, and then put it in here, it's just going to reverse the order. And I don't really want that, because I'm lazy and I want it to be easier. So let me just pop those in there. And so now what I want to do is just change this word to the cube. I think I spelled that right. Yeah, I did. And let's rotate it. Just keep things interesting. I just pressed R on the keyboard. I'm really clicking away here. I pressed R on the keyboard to bring up the rotation value for the cube, and then I just made it 90%. Actually, we'll make this, we'll keep it straight. We'll start rotating things in a minute. So let me click that and put that kind of in the center. All right, let's create a new composition. Side 3. All right, paste everything else in there. Change this to a new word. Rotate it, and this is just a matter of picking things that you like different words or phrases. Like you can have like a title for your film or for your company logo that will go in here. That will you can just use a cube and it'll have different words on here. So let's continue creating our sides. All right, paste it in. Cube part 2. I'm really not paying attention to what I'm typing. I'm just kind of making it up as I go. And let's rotate this one 90 degrees. I keep on clicking the gray solid. I don't want to do that, but I keep doing it. And we've got 2 more sides. And we'll press OK. I press the wrong button. Layer composition, new composition. Side 5. Paste everything in. The cube part 2, not all sides. Scale that down. Not all sides. Composition, new composition. I forgot to name it. Composition settings. Side 6. Let's get rid of that. Are equal. So the cube part 2, not all sides are equal. Now if that doesn't sound like a horror movie to you, I don't know what is, because I'm actually quite terrified right now. Once again, I'm terrified that I keep on clicking the wrong button, but let's just ignore that I do that and, be happy. So now we have all of our sides. We've got the cube part 2, not all sides are equal. So that's looking pretty good to me. It's very deadly. The red is a stark contrast to the blue. These two could fight each other if you wanted to get really in depth with it. But let's delete these so that I can make some more space. Just keep on clicking and deleting. So we've got our main tutorial composition here, but we want to create one more composition and make it a little bit larger, maybe 700 by 700, same time frame. And we want to take all of these sides and put them in here. So go to our project and find all of these sides here. And we want to drag them in here. And once again, the way you drag things, say they'll import the exact same way. So now we've got all these sides in here. And we want to basically form our cube. So we press F4 to bring up our 3D layers or switches. We can make them all 3D. And we're also going to, while we're at it, make them all have motion blur. And that'll be important later on. And we'll select motion blur for the composition as well. So what we want to do is we're going to create a new camera. 50 millimeters is good. Okay. And we want to go to our active camera and select the top view. So what this is going to do is going to give us a bird's eye view of our cube. So we've got our first side here. We can take our second side and rotate it 90 degrees. And that's going to rotate it 90 degrees, and we can just kind of eyeball where the cube should be. So if we just slide it over here, move it down, and then when we zoom in, we could use the arrow keys on the keyboard to do small micro adjustments, which makes things really easy. So that's pretty well lined up there. Take our second side, rotate it. You can either rotate it at 90 degrees or negative 90 degrees, whatever you feel like. Select it, move it all the way over and up. Try to get as close as possible. Zoom in. And once again, get it right in there. And we'll take our next side, side 4, and we just want to push it back. And what do you know? Perfect. And these sides, we want to rotate them on the x-axis 90 degrees, both of them. Make this one -90. All right, so now we can just kind of move these over as well until they line up with each other. Hopefully I don't want to go in here and make too many adjustments. I don't think I will. Look at that. Let you know. Just line it all up perfectly. I'm pretty excited about that. And now I want to go into the front view, and we can take these. We'll take this one and just wrong one. We'll take our fifth side, move it down to the bottom, and zoom in here. And once again, we want to just line it up with the very bottom of that layer there. And take our other side and raise it to the top. And once again, line it up. And now we have our cube created. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And now what we want to do is make sure everything is faced the right way. So we want to go back to our active camera, press C, and just rotate around. You can press C multiple times to give you different options for the camera. Just make sure all of the sides say what they need to say, and they're not. See, 2 is facing the wrong way, so we need to adjust it. So we can press scale, uncheck that button, the uniform button there, and make it the opposite, -100 on the x-axis. So now that's fixed. Let's continue rotating the camera. Not all sides good are equal. Fantastic. That's great. So now we've got our cube here, and it's lining up very nicely. So now we can go to our tutorial composition, go to our project, and change this to composition settings, tutorial cube. Cube? Maybe not. Cube. Okay. And now we'll go to our tutorial, and we'll find the tutorial cube in here. So import the tutorial cube. So now we have this cube here. But if we create a new camera now and press OK, it's going to tell us that we don't have any 3D layers. And that's because this composition is not recognizing that this composition here has 3D layers built into it. So we need to tell this composition to continuously rasterize this composition to give us the 3D layer. So we can just press this little star button here, and now if we rotate the camera around, we've got a 3D cube. And now if we just animate the camera from this point and we try to flip around, you see it's going to do this weird thing. And there's a couple ways that we can solve this, but one of the easier ways is with a null object. So if we go to layer, new, null object, we can make it 3D and parent the camera to the null object. So now everything we do to the null object, the camera is going to follow it. And I think I went over that in a previous tutorial, but the ideas are exactly the same. So now we can rotate our null object, and the camera will rotate, and it won't do that flip move, which we don't really want. So let's go ahead and create the backgrounds. What I want to do is go to layer, new, solid, and call this background, BG, and effect, generate ramp. And I want to do a linear ramp, and make the first one, the start color, a reddish color, and the bottom color a reddish color. So you have to have a different inflection whenever you make that one. So you've got a reddish color and a reddish color. I don't know if you caught that or not, but pretty advanced stuff here. So we want to create a new shape layer, layer new shape layer, and we're going to click on this, and right where we did the rectangular mask, hold down that and get your star out, and just click somewhere in the middle and just make a big old star. So now I've got this gigantic red star here, and if you ask me, I'd be pretty much done. If I was going to present this to one of my clients, I'd just be like, well, here you go, and whatever they say afterwards, I would just close my ears. But let's just change this up a little bit to give us that rising star look, and we'll go back to the cube in a minute and start animating the way it turns and flips and does all those nice things. So let's just bring down the polystar options here, polystar path, and just we have the points here, and just raise those up a ton until you're comfortable with it. Now we're getting close, but no cigar yet. And bring the inner radius. I just normally make mine 0, so we get rid of it. And now we have this weird whatever that is. And the outer radius, we want to bring that up very large, like 3,000. So that makes it very large. And the key here is to take the outer roundness and raise it up. Because the inner roundness isn't really going to do much because there's no inner radius. So I'm going to keep that 0. To press F4, overlay. Where's that? There it is. So now we have this gradient over here, but we do have a problem. We have this white line, white border around it all from the stroke. So let's go back to our shape layer and go to the stroke, and the stroke width, just make that 0. That'll get rid of it. And we can also go to our polystar path and animate the rotation. And we could either use keyframes, but I want to use an expression. So if I alt click on the rotation and I press time times 40, it'll, as the time progresses, it'll move 40 pixels, basically, or 40 whatever you want to call it. So now if we solo our star layer, now I'm going to try to hypnotize you here, and so stare at the screen, stare at me. You think that you are a ballerina and you're going to dance. So now suddenly I want to dance. Anyways, so now we've got this layer here, and it's rotating around, and we also have our background layer. And if we look back to the original composition, we see that we're getting somewhere. But I think that we might have a little bit too many lines here. It's kind of hurting my eyes. So let me go back to my shape layer and just lower the points down to something more, attractive. And I also want to change the color of it, so it's a little bit darker. There we go. All right, so that's looking pretty good. And now what we want to do is work on the rotation. Like if we go to the main composition here, we can see that we've got a lot of keyframes of how the cube moves. So now what I would do if I was doing this for a client, I would use expressions to do this next part. But the expressions are a little bit more advanced and a little bit hard to explain, so we're going to use keyframes, very simple keyframes. So we want to take the tutorial cube and hold down, grab the position, hold down shift the rotation, and shift the scale. So now if we want to keyframe the scale first, so make it pop in. So we'll start from 0, and we'll just move forward a few frames and go to 100. And let's solo the cube, so we're just working with it. So now we have the cube coming in just like that. And that's kind of boring. A lot of people, when they begin After Effects, they use keyframes just like this, or they might even go a step further and use easy ease keyframes. That just kind of makes it look a little bit better, but it's not very dynamic. So what I want to do is make it bounce in a little bit. So we can just move forward a few frames. We'll start here, move forward 1, 2, 3, 4 frames, and bring the scale down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bring the scale back up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bring it back down. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And up, back up to 100. So now if we view this, the cube kind of bounces in, just like that. And the ending scale is a little bit too large. Just lower that down. And that looks pretty nice. And we can even select all these cubes with all these keyframes, but the first one, right click or press F9, keyframe assistant, easy ease. So that looks pretty nice. And what we can also do is rotate the cube as it comes in very slightly. And what we can also do is rotate the cube slightly. And we're going to rotate the cube by using the camera as it comes in. So we hold down R, bring up the rotation. We'll start at the beginning and we'll rotate it a little bit on the axis up just a touch. And we'll move that, and I wanted to start from here so I could see it. So we'll move this, we'll do a little bit more. So we'll move this all the way to the end. And we'll rotate it up just so we can see the top a little bit. Click the arrow here, rotate it down. Click the arrow here, rotate it back up. Click the arrow again, down. And back up to its resting position. And we'll do the easy ease keyframes here again. Keyframe assistant, easy ease. So now the cube comes in a more interesting way. It's not the same as just scaling up. It looks a lot better. And there are expressions out there that does this for you, so you don't have to keyframe it. But I do like using keyframes sometimes because it gives me a little bit more control, and it's fun times. So now we have the cube sitting in this position here. Let's rotate it up just a touch. Maybe not that much. Down a little bit. Okay, I'm happy with that. So now we have the cube here. We want to go to the next word, which is over here. So we'll let it sit there for a second. We'll click the icons here to add another keyframe. And we'll move forward a little bit. And we'll rotate it again. Just like that. And we also want to make sure it stays in the center. So we'll also hold down shift on the null. And hold down shift on the null object and keyframe the position. So we'll start here. And we'll grab the null object and move it over just like that. And we'll also go back to the beginning and move it back to its resting where it was before we did that. So now it stays right where we want it to. And remember earlier, whenever we were in this tutorial cube, we made everything have motion blur. That's because, once again, it's continuously reading this composition. So it's going to use the motion blur from this to make motion blur here. So if we click enable motion blur for this composition, it'll update so that we have the motion blur here. So once again, we'll also want to do the wiggle motion here. So we can start here, and let's over exaggerate it just a touch. We'll start from around there. Move forward about 4 frames. Back and down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back. And about 5 frames to its resting position where we want it. Which looks pretty good. So if we preview all of this, we've got our cube flying in. It changes direction. It's kind of wonky there. It's not perfect, but it's the first time I tried it here, so we'll have to adjust that. So we can just go back in and adjust that. But that's the basic idea for this tutorial. What you want to do is you just want to go through and change everything to where you want it to be. Keyframe all of that. I'm not going to go through all of it here, but just like in this composition here, that's exactly what I did. And there was one other thing that I added at the end, is a little bit of press U here. If I press U here, I added a little expression to the null object to give a little bit of random movement to the rotation values and the position values. So if we go to a tutorial composition here, so we can not click on the position and type in wiggle 2, 15. And that'll give us a little bit of random movement, and we can also do it for the Y position or any position that you feel is fine to do the wiggle expression on. And we'll do 2, 10. I think that's about what I did last time. 1.5, 1.5. So let's lower that a little bit. It's going to be a little large, so we'll do 1, 10 instead. So 2 times a second, it's going to move 15 pixels. 1 time a second, it's going to move 10 pixels every time. So now if we preview this, it's going to be very subtle, but it's going to help sell it to make it look like the cube is there in 3D space, floating in the air. And one more thing, just to add a little bit more depth to it, we can click on the cube, go to Effect, Perspective, a drop shadow. And that's going to give us a drop shadow on the cube, and move it over wherever you feel like, and just raise the distance up. Kind of put it in a cool position, and bring up the softness to make it look like there's a shadow back here. And that'll just give us a little bit more depth, a little bit more, make it a little bit more dynamic. So that's pretty much it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. And what we're going to be doing next time is a little bit more advanced things. I'm going to get into visual effects and compositing with real footage, and I hope you like this. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and I'd love to see your guys' creations on this. This is a little bit interesting. It's got a lot of practical uses that I'd love to see your guys' video responses. So if you want to leave me one, that'd be great. If not, that's great too, just not as fun. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time.